Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How are you? I really like this skill today that I'm going to show you, so I'm excited to bring it to our YouTube for Radically Open DBT. Okay, so this is second part of lesson 21. All right, so this is what they call match plus one skills. Okay, so this is really good if you want to get closer to somebody and build a closer relationship. Okay, so it's not hard to understand skill. It's actually, the concept's pretty simple. And once you know it, it'll be fairly easy to implement if you're willing to try it. Okay. So I hope you like this one. So this is enhancing intimacy with match plus one. All right. So the first concept that we need to discuss before we get to exactly what match plus one is that self-disclosure matters. So if we're trying to get closer to somebody, it's really important to be more personally open, right? To disclose a little bit more about our thoughts and feelings and be honest and genuine with that person, okay? Because if we remain closed, it's very hard to be close, okay? So I'm gonna show you a few examples just so you can get a sense of, how this works, okay? So here's scenario one, okay? So this is what happens when you're talking to somebody who reveals little personal information, okay? So we're gonna mostly focus on the females in these three examples just to make it simple, okay? So in the first example, we're talking about who I'll call Brian and Kate. I don't know if that's really their names, but let's just pretend, okay? So here's a dialogue. How was your weekend? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing special. Did you do anything different? Yes. What was it? Took a bike ride. Okay, boring. You can see in their face how bored they are, right? So if we only provide one-word responses or very short responses to people's questions, it shuts down the conversation and it makes it really boring and it's very hard to get to know somebody. And if you're trying to, engage somebody that's only giving you one-word responses, you might start to give up and be like, geez, I'm trying too hard and they're giving me nothing, right? So if you're the type of person that gives very brief responses, it's going to be very hard for people to get to know you. Okay. So just keep that in the back of your mind and, just kind of file that away for a minute. We're going to go to now scenario two. Okay. So we're going to talk about two more people who I'll call Tyler and Sonia. Okay. So again, we're going to talk about Sonia's response and they'll focus on her. So here we go. How was your weekend? Fine. How was yours? Great. I went for a long hike on Sunday with a friend from work. Where'd you hike? Along the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. How long was the hike? We only got as far as the first visitor center, and then we stopped because I had to buy some Band-Aids for a blister. Was it fun? All but the blister. Okay, so if we're focusing on Sonia, notice that she's not revealing much about herself. She's just asking him questions, okay? So Tyler starts out asking her how her weekend was. So instead of Sonia revealing something about her weekend and sharing what she did or, how it went and stuff like that, she's only responding by asking him questions. So it kind of takes the heat off of her, but it also prevents him from getting to know her and from feeling closer to her because she's not really saying much about herself, okay? And not that asking questions is bad, but if you want someone to get closer to you, you can't just, deflect and answer with questions. All right. So here's scenario three. Okay. So I'll call these people Luis and Maria. Okay. So now this is talking to somebody who does reveal personal information. Okay. So Luis says, so how was your weekend? It was really nice. I went for a long bike ride to part of the Cuyahoga Valley area I'd never been to before and came across the Stephen Frazee house along the Ohio and Erie Canal. Wow, I didn't know you loved biking so much. How old is that house? I looked it up when I got home and found out it was built sometime between 1825 and 1827. And people say it's haunted. I didn't know about that, but I'm a real sucker for the paranormal. Okay, so now if we're focusing on Maria, you notice that she actually answered his question when he tries to engage her, right? She told a little bit about her weekend and what she did and shared a few details. So it wasn't overly personal, but she's starting to share something. So he's able to get to know her, right? And it also makes conversation flow easier when you're willing to share more details. All right. So match plus one. Okay. So that builds on this idea that it's important for us to reveal more personal information in order to have people connect with us and for us to feel connected to them, okay? So when we use Match+1, it's to help get to know somebody that we just met or to make an existing relationship more intimate or close, okay? So if you notice in your own interactions and also in the sample ones I just gave you, when somebody matches our level of self-disclosure or even reveals a little bit more, it kind of gives us the signal that they're interested in wanting to connect with us, right? So when we do that, we give off that signal as well, okay? So it's important for us to share a little bit with the person that we're with, or a lot, depending on the person. Okay, so here's how we do it, okay? It's really not that hard of a concept, again. It's just, trying to be willing and open enough to try. Okay, so the first thing we could always do, as with a lot of the radically open DBT scenarios, is to practice creating a feeling of social safety, right? So two of the main ways we can do that, the big 3+1, okay? So the +1 is a little different from the Match+1+1. So the +1 is if you're sitting down to lean back in your chair to show that you're relaxed. Take a deep breath, right? Closed mouth smile and eyebrow wags, right? Okay, you could also try a loving kindness meditation before you do the skill. So it's kind of like imagining a person you really care about and wishing them well, and imagining a neutral person and wishing them well. It could be a person in the interaction you're about to have, but it could be different people too. But the practice of doing that kind of like creates a feeling of safety. Okay, so begin by greeting the person, kind of like the guys in the picture, like, hey, how you doing, right? Shaking hands. And then if they say, how are you, right? Actually answer the question, okay? If you just say, good, fine, nothing much, you just shut down the conversation. Think of like maybe at least a sentence you could share about what's going on, okay? Reveal something about your day, your week, your life, whatever, okay? So when you're first getting to know somebody, this could be something very surface, very low level social disclosure, right? It could be a chit chat, but at least it's getting things started, right? Listen to how the person responds and see if they're revealing about as much as you are, okay? And if they're revealing a little bit, you could match the amount that they're revealing, and +1 is reveal a little bit more, right? So if you want to get closer, you got to make it a little more personal in what you're revealing, right? And see if they match it. And if they match it, down the road, you also might want to increase by a little bit more as well, okay? So this takes time. Okay, let me go to the next slide, actually. So it doesn't happen immediately. Like if it's your first meeting with the person, it's not going to necessarily get super intimate right away. You might have to do the Match+1 skill with a person over several meetings over time, and then things will gradually get more intimate or more close with that person, okay, if things go well. So we can't rush it, right? And we also, shouldn't give up too fast either, okay? And even if they don't reciprocate right away and start revealing as much as we are, we could still kind of be patient with that person because maybe they're also feeling a little, anxious or closed themselves, okay? And also to remember, like we talked about in scenario 2, that Match+1 in this particular skill is about sharing information. It's not about asking questions. Of course, it's not a bad thing necessarily to ask each other questions, but if you're only asking questions, you're not sharing about yourself, right? So when you're doing a Match+1 and you're trying to get closer to somebody, you got to actually say something about you, all right? Okay, so they offer to us in Radically Open DBT a Match+1 intimacy rating scale, okay? So this is a scale that helps us to kind of conceptualize how connected and how intimate this relationship is on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? Based on the way the dialogue is going and how much we're sharing, okay? So you could use this as like a general guide to help determine how close or intimate a particular relationship is and what the next level of sharing might look like, okay? So it gives specific examples of what the different levels can be, okay? So let's take a look at this together, all right? So levels 1 and 2. So obviously the lower number is a lower level of intimacy, higher numbers are a higher level of intimacy, So the lowest level, levels 1 and 2. It's like if you look at that picture, it's like maybe a bunch of people at a work gathering or a cocktail party or something like that. They're just kind of having casual conversation, right? Not particularly close. So levels 1 and 2 is talking about everyday non-emotional events, all right? So the typical, let's talk about the weather. Oh, gee, it looks like it might rain tomorrow. And oh, it's a little cold coming in today. How is it for you, right? So just, how's the traffic? Did you hit traffic on the way, right? Nothing personal, but you're actually sharing a little bit about non-emotional topics. Okay, you could also state your opinion about non-emotional topics, things that won't trigger people, but are just, okay, like, hey, they have really good service at this restaurant. That waiter was really nice. Oh, what'd you have? You had beef? Oh, I had chicken. The chicken was good, right? No big deal, right? Okay, next level, levels 3 and 4. Okay, so it might me think of like how things might go on a first date or when you first start dating somebody, right? So that's why I kind of picked that picture there. So this could involve making non-emotional disclosures about personal goals or values, okay? So let's say you're getting to know each other and you might talk about things like, oh, do you think you want kids? Or how do you think you want to raise a kid? Or, what kind of religion are you? Or, what political party do you follow? Like just, some general things, okay? It could be making emotional or passionate disclosures about non-personal topics. Like I really am for pro-environment. I really believe in recycling and electric cars and something like that, right? You could be really passionate about that, for example. Or world peace, as it says there. Revealing socially acceptable personal preferences, okay? I like to go mountain biking, kind of like we talked about earlier in that other example, right? Or, yeah, I really love to play volleyball, or, I like going to the beach, okay? So personal preferences that are kind of normal, okay? All right, so we're getting a little more intimate now, levels 5 and 6. So I picked these ladies because it makes me think of like if you had a close relationship with somebody at work, for example, you might get to 5 or 6. So they look like they're at a desk looking at a document or something like that. So if you've been working with somebody for a while, or maybe even a friend, you might kind of be at this level. So this could involve revealing private feelings or emotional judgments about personal events. So the example they gave is revealing your true feelings about a boss or a coworker. So sharing that involves a little bit more trust, because like I wouldn't want to tell my coworker that if I thought my coworker was going to blab it to the boss, right? So you're saying something a little more personal, hoping the person's going to keep it in their confidence, okay? It could also involve revealing possibly socially unacceptable opinions, judgments, or preferences, right? So unlike the other one, which is more acceptable, socially acceptable opinions, this one may be a little more unacceptable, right? Like, I can't stand disorganized people. It's so annoying, right? Oh, look at her desk. Why, she can never find her papers, right? Okay, so maybe that's like, a little bit not nice, but I'm able to share it with that person because I think she'll know what I mean, right? Okay, levels 7 to 8. All right, so I picked this picture because it may be a picture of two friends, who are maybe friends for a while, they're a little closer. They could share more personal types of things and trust each other with that information. So level 7 to 8 could involve revealing personal opinions or thoughts about the relationship itself, right? So it takes a little more trust to actually talk about something within the relationship rather than just outside the relationship, right? So it's like if you're willing to tell somebody you're one of my best friends, that's kind of like a personal disclosure, right? Okay. And or it could involve revealing private feelings or judgments about highly emotional personal events, right? So if you're struggling in your marriage and you're talking to your best friend about it, that's like something a little more personal, right? Or let's say, your kid's struggling with a learning disability and you're asking a good friend for advice about how to do that, right? How to help the kid. That might be a little more personal than something you tell a coworker, for example, okay? It could also involve engaging in open emotional expression, right? So it takes a little bit more safety to like really laugh openly and be silly with somebody, or to allow yourself to cry in front of somebody, or just kind of allow someone to see you angry even, so that's a little bit, a little bit more intimacy, 7 and 8. Okay, so now we're getting much closer. Okay, so they actually separate these into separate ones, 9 and 10. Okay, so level 9 is probably like either a partnership or like a really good friend, or maybe even a therapist you're really close to, right? Revealing feelings of affection or desire for more intimacy, right? Telling person, I want us to be closer, right? Moving to that next level of your relationship, for example, okay? Or I want to spend more time with you, or let's go on vacation together, or something like that, right? Let's get engaged. You're close enough and safe enough to share stories of shameful or embarrassing experiences that could be damaging if known publicly, right? Maybe you're sharing some details about a troubled childhood or an alcoholic parent, or, you know, the fact that you're an addict and you're in AA, right? It might be a little bit more personal and you wouldn't want the whole world to know, but you do trust that person with that information, okay? It also shows you're willing to be highly vulnerable with that person, okay? So it's like closer to like sharing the deepest, darkest secret thing. Like, well, deep down, I'm really afraid I'm not good enough. You know, I really worry that, you know, people aren't going to like me or I'm not lovable. That's hard to share, right? Okay, level 10. I picked that picture because that's probably a level you wouldn't get to with just anybody. It might be like a husband, a wife, a partner, a really, really close friend, you know, someone maybe you've known for years, you really trust on a deep level, okay? So this could involve expressing love or intense feeling of caring or desire for a committed long-term relationship, right? So that's really something more of a partnership, right? And not just and being willing to reveal deep-seated, vulnerable emotions that you may have never expressed before, right? Something you wouldn't tell just anybody. You would only tell this one person because you really, really trust that person. And not just and being willing to make serious personal sacrifices for the relationship, right? Like I know a couple where the wife donated one of her kidneys. I'm sorry, the husband donated one of his kidneys to the wife, right? Unbelievable, right? That you would make that sacrifice for somebody, you know? So wouldn't do it just for a casual friend. You might have to really, you know, feel that connection, that bond, okay? So how do we use this, okay? So let's think about relationships that you already have, right? Who's in my life? How connected am I with that person on that scale, okay? And do I want to bump it up to the next level with that person on that scale using my match plus one skills, okay? So think about back to a recent interaction you had with somebody that maybe you want to get closer to. So think about like how much personal information did I reveal? And at what level did I reveal my personal information based on that scale? So what level of intimacy did I experience? And did the person I was interacting with match what I put out there, right? So if I interacted with them at a 5, did they match me at a 5? Or were they holding back and only coming out at like a 2, right? So are we kind of matched in our level of intimacy based on how we share, okay? So you could kind of assess this with your relationships in general, okay? And then think, if I do want some of my relationships to be bumped up to the next level, are there any additional coping skills that I could add to my repertoire or use to help me be more open and to help me share, right? So we talked before about the big 3+1. And plus there's several other interpersonal skills in radically open DBT, such as flexible mind is deep, like deeply revealing your inner self to another person, right? So you can reflect back on some of the other radically open DBT skills to help you be more open with the person if this is something you would like to do. All right, and that's it. Okay, so I hope this helps you in your relationships. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. All right, bye everybody.